Hey, this is the week 5 online presentation. My name is Dan. This is the week 5 presentation for the summary of a couple of the Old Testament books. We have 1st and 2nd Samuel today, 1st and 2nd Kings, the book of Ezra, and the book of Nehemiah. And today we're just going to go through each of these books, hit the major points, some of the major characters, kind of just talk about each one and the significance that it played, and to see the story of the Old Testament worked out through these few books here, and to see how God led his people even in times where his people rebelled against him. So let's just go ahead and get started. So 1 Samuel. So just a couple things we need to go over here is just a quick overview on the main characters. So one, the prophet Samuel, who the book is named after. Samuel had a vision from the Lord in his early life. Near the beginning of this book, the vision told him from God. It was from God, God talking to Samuel and telling him things that were to come and that were needed to be heard. King Saul is the second major character in this book. Saul was called to be king even when Samuel warned the people that this would not end well. So Samuel knew that a king was not what the people needed at that time, but God said to Samuel, just, hey, appoint them their king, and they're going to learn through this situation. So Saul's the king that is appointed. And then King David. King David at this point is only a younger boy. He's not yet the king, but he's a good friend with Saul's son. And there's a couple different instances in this book where Saul even goes after David. One of the most famous ones is when David hides in the cave from Saul. These three men helped to form Israel into a well-oiled kingdom, from what it used to be, like a messy Israel, into tribes ruled by different judges. 2 Samuel condensed it a little bit nicer. 1 Samuel had a lot going for it. David becomes the king in the beginning of this book, taking over for Saul. God will bless David's rule and make the kingdom a great one. David does slip up. He sins with Bathsheba by sending Bathsheba's husband to the front lines of the battle and pulling back all the other men, so that when the fighting began, it was a slaughter. There was no hope for him. And David then goes and sleeps with Bathsheba, committing adultery in that act. And this is one of the great times where David is very expressive. He's very remorseful, but also he's very sorrowful, but also God is going to punish him. He says so. David's son Absalom actually leads an uprising against them. And then after that, David wages war. Into First Kings. So on a bit of a change of pace from the characters in the previous two books. God provides Solomon to rule over Israel, so another king. God creates his temple in Israel. Solomon disobeys God and goes another way, splitting the kingdoms of Israel. So even though Solomon was appointed, and Solomon was actually one of the wisest kings, he still made a lot of mistakes, and one of the great ones was splitting Israel. Jeroboam makes a choice to take the northern half of the kingdom and lead them away from God. So not only is Israel split, but he just chooses entirely to take them away from God. He doesn't need God. The kings in the north fight and struggle for control of the land. God uses Elijah the prophet to show Ahab, the king, God's power in a couple different instances. And actually going into 2 Kings, we see that still a little bit with God using Elijah and then Joah and Hazael, pardon my pronunciations of those, to judge Ahab the king. And so that kind of continues there into 2 Kings. Different kings then rule the northern and southern parts of Israel, trying to take control. They can't agree on one ruler. So it's a constant struggle and difference between different leaders trying to take control of the northern and southern halves of Israel. Assyria then comes to take control over all of Israel. Hezekiah, again, pardon my pronunciation, reforms the kingdom of Judah. Manasseh angers the Lord and basically dooms Judah, or I like to say puts a dark cloud over Judah. It's a sticky situation. But Josiah plays a big part in reforming Judah again. Judah, though, falls yet again, but this time to the mighty kingdom of Babylon. And we know a lot of the different stories that will come out of the times in Babylon, just between Daniel and then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. But Babylon, being a very large kingdom, takes over Judah very easily. Moving on then to the book of Ezra. So the remnant finds its way back to Judah in the beginning of this book. The temple's new foundation and structures are formed by Judah. The enemies of Judah come put an end to his work for a short time. These enemies rise up and stop his work. But the work on the temple does continue, and Judah continues to finish this great place. Finally, the temple is completed at long last, even despite the setbacks and the delays. Again, you can see God's hand through all of this, even the times when the people wanted a king. Through the other books, God still had his hand of protection over these people, no matter what. So Ezra is sent to teach the law of the Lord to the people by the king Artaxerxes. Again, I apologize about the pronunciation. But Ezra is sent to teach the law of the Lord to the people. And then he commands the wives who were not of the people. They were told to be gone. Ezra was told them, these foreign wives, to be gone from the people. And we now shift then finally into Nehemiah. So the reconstruction of Jerusalem is underway once Nehemiah gets the okay. So the city walls, start to form. However, more enemies of the city come and threaten this construction, kind of like in the previous book, of Ezra. But Nehemiah, in these times, he helps the poorer people of the city, take some of the pressures off of the people. He helps all of the people that he can. And even though enemies are at his gate trying to knock the city walls over, they do eventually finally go up, and the city walls are completed. Nehemiah counts the people of the city. Ezra then proclaims the law to the land and to the people. Again, just like in the beginning, or in Ezra, the book of Ezra, he is told to proclaim the law, and that is what he's doing continually. The Feast of Booths is officially brought back to Israel. It's revitalized, using it again. The land understands that it has sinned against the Lord and rededicates back to God. So the people finally, after kings and judges, they finally come back and realize, oh, Lord, what have we done? And they rededicate themselves back to God. The Jews are all counted in a mass census. The wall is up, and the people go to worship the Lord on it. So even after all the trials they've had, they worship the Lord on this wall. Nehemiah, like a good leader, keeps pointing the people back to the Lord. So Ezra and Nehemiah both constantly pointing people back to Christ.